Actually, Sharren can join us now. Sharren Haskel, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Israel. Good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Sheila.
Can I ask you about these reports of a plan for the full occupation of Gaza and a renewed military offensive there? What do you know about that?
So, unfortunately, in the last couple of months, we've been trying to negotiate with Hamas to reach a ceasefire. Every proposal that the Americans put on the table was approved by us, and we said we'll agree to it. But unfortunately, Hamas kept on refusing, even though Witkoff was going quite a few steps towards Hamas's demand. On the last proposal they refused, we've actually sent a whole delegation because even though Hamas did not accept the proposal, we thought we'll be able to bridge the gaps in order to reach that ceasefire. I think that many things happened during that time, including, unfortunately, some leaders who backed Hamas and getting them to toughen their position to the point where they completely refused.
Are you alluding to Keir Starmer as amongst some of those leaders?
Absolutely. With his last statement, yes, and Macron and a few other leaders. It was just that since we started those negotiations, almost every week, there was either a declaration in support of Hamas or something that would give them a reason to continue and not to approve that negotiation.
And can I ask you, just to remind me, those American proposals that Israel had agreed to and Hamas walked away from, as you accurately describe, did they include a commitment from Israel to end the war? A commitment that, as you know, 600 senior Israeli retired officials, political and military and intelligence, called for themselves yesterday?
So, look, as far as I understand, there was a guarantee that Israel will continue to negotiate if Hamas will continue to be serious in order to end the conflict.
And what would serious look like? Releasing all the hostages?
Releasing the hostages, the demands for disarmament and what will happen the day after in Gaza. Those, you can't close all of these details in a matter of a few weeks. That takes quite a bit of a negotiation. And therefore, we said that if Hamas continues to negotiate in good faith, there will be a continuation for that. Unfortunately, Hamas continued to refuse. And Witkoff rightfully said that Hamas was negotiating in bad faith. So they didn't really want it to come into a result. And so after the images of Aviatar and Rome that were published just on the weekend.
The hostages, yeah.
Yeah, two of our hostages where they are being starved, abused mentally, physically, tortured. We understand we don't have a lot of time. And so the only possible path we are left with is through military means to make sure we will make sure that the hostages will be returned to us.
Okay, so
on Hamas terrorist death cult.
Can I ask you then, in that answer there, are you telling me that the decision that Netanyahu is seeking to get approval in the cabinet from, we are told, that decision has been made in light of those images of Eviatar David and Ron Breslavsky, that it is now all systems go and rescue them and the other hostages? Is that what the full occupation of Gaza would be about?
No, look, you refer to a full occupation. That's not the case at all. What Israel Katz have said is that we are going to go into a full military operation, a military campaign to make sure that we achieve the two goals of the war. The one is to release our hostages as quickly and as safely as possible, and the other one is to disarm Hamas. With the path of negotiation being closed by Hamas, we are left only with that option, unfortunately. And we have to do it quickly because we understand times is a matter of great concern for them.
We saw, sadly, last year, didn't we, that in some cases, and we have heard since that it was an order from on high in Hamas, that if the IDF are getting close to rescue a hostage, just kill that hostage. We saw it in a group of 5 in a tunnel, including Hersh Goldberg Polin. Young people just shot in the head rather than be allowed to be rescued. I mean, it's an impossible, unimaginable choice. But is the choice that Israel is making at the moment to risk that again?
Did you see Aviatar and Ron?
I did. I've been talking about it this half hour, yeah.
So, Sheila, you need to understand, the longer we wait, the more time Hamas is wasting our time on negotiation where they don't want to lead it anywhere. These are times when we are losing their lives. Hamas didn't really murder them and executed them because of that. It was because they needed to leave and leave quickly, and they couldn't take them with them. Hamas is executing them not because of that. Why did they execute the Bivas family? Today, one of the Bivas children was meant to celebrate his 6th birthday. Why did they execute them?
Yeah, I know. Listen, Sharren, you will hear no support
I know, but
from
Sheila,
me for Hamas. You really won't. I'm just asking. I know. You will hear no support for Hamas from me.
I'm left with the decision of whether, as a leader, and our prime minister is left with a decision, whether we are going to waste another few months. During those months, we will lose the life of some of these hostages, while Hamas is trying to waste our time to try to get the international community to put pressure on Israel so that we surrender to the demands of Hamas. And we cannot agree to that. So we are left between 2 bad choices. And we are making the choice that is going to bring them home as quickly and as safely as possible.
Okay.
And is going to end the war as quickly as possible while we disarm Hamas.
Can I ask you as well, about, you've answered my questions about the potential increase in military activity across Gaza. The aid situation and the clear suffering that has been going on and is continuing to go on. Hunger, starvation, people dying in the process of attempting to get food. And I know that we've got all kinds of mixed reports about how they are dying, but the IDF has accepted that sometimes they've died at their hands, and there are clearly other people shooting as well, and missiles landing. It's a mess. Do you accept that Israel's decision to approach aid in that way has contributed to that mess?
Look, we are facing a very difficult war in an urban area where, in contrast to other conflicts like in Syria, Sudan, Somalia, Ukraine, the neighboring countries and other countries are giving refuge to women and children and people who are fleeing the war. And in that case in particular, unfortunately, the Palestinians are being treated differently. And so we are doing everything we can to try and avoid civilian casualties. On another contrast is the way that aid is being distributed in Gaza in comparison to other conflict, where the United Nations have failed the mission because they're not sending the proper agencies that have the knowledge and the logistics and the capability of doing that in massive conflicts far bigger than the conflict we have right now in Gaza. They have given it to an organization that failed that mission since day one because Hamas has taken over this organization. It's completely corrupt and doesn't have the capability to do that.
But people were not. Again, you will have no support from about Hamas from me. But people were not starving in Gaza at that point, were they? And they are now.
Hold on. Since day one, the humanitarian problem and situation, and I have to tell you, it's heartbreaking. It's very difficult for us as well to see these images coming. Is there a humanitarian crisis? Yes. But the first responsible for that humanitarian crisis is Hamas. And
first, but not only.
The second one is the United Nations, where it failed the mission and didn't send the proper agencies to go and distribute it. Okay, is there some responsibility? Were there mistakes being made by Israel? Yes, unfortunately, it's a tragedy. We don't aim towards a population.
So what now with aid?
It happened. Yes, it did happen.
So what now with aid then? Because it's still not resolved, is it, fully? And I don't pretend it's easy, but it's still not resolved.
So there's two channels to distribute aid. The old mechanism through the United Nations, where even now, as we speak, there are hundreds of truck worth of aid sitting and waiting in Gaza for the UN to just come and pick it up. But they're not doing it. They are failing that mission. They're not distributing enough. And when they do, much of it is being either looted by Hamas or being stolen on the way.
Well, can I respond to that? Because the UN... Okay, finish your point, yeah.
It's important because there's another channel. And the other channel is what the Americans have opened, where there are millions of meals that are being distributed every day for free directly to the Palestinian population. We are reinforcing that with Air Force from Jordan, from England, from Germany, who are coming by air and distributing that as well. And so look, with that difficult situation, I think that no other country have made so much effort in trying to make sure that the civilian population is not being harmed and that aid actually reached its destination.
Can I ask you, though, how it's very difficult to get to the truth, isn't it, sometimes in these situations, not least because there are no international journalists allowed into Gaza. The UN has, just in the last few days, reported that, indeed, a great deal of aid going into Gaza is stolen, but not necessarily in large part by Hamas. Again, these aren't my words. This is that UN report. The US intelligence says that there is no extensive evidence of Hamas being the main stealer of that aid, that there are desperate people, there is chaos, therefore there are gangs, criminal gangs, opportunists, that it isn't just about Hamas, it's about the chaos on the ground.
Absolutely. I mean, there is chaos on the ground, as there is chaos in Sudan and Somalia and in Syria. But when you send the United Nations proper agencies like UNICEF and World Food Program, OCHA, that's meant to direct everything, they have the capability in far greater conflicts and even in distributing to millions of people, not just 2 million people, but some in cases like Sudan, 25 million displaced people.
Well, let me tell you, you're right about the complexity in other places as well, but hang on, but in those same places where hideous and complex wars are taking place, I'll tell you what else there is on the ground. Journalists freely able to go, risk their lives in going to report a war and to report facts as they find them, not prejudge them, as they find them. Why won't Israel, if what you're doing, if what you claim is a just war still, why won't Israel let journalists, international journalists, freely, and I don't mean in droves, there's always control around these things, but into, established journalists into that war zone so that they can tell us the story?
So you need to understand as well, whether it's in other conflicts and even in Ukraine, reporters can report very safely from Kiev, when sometimes hundreds of kilometers, sometimes even far more kilometers away from the actual front line.
But there are reporters on the front line. I know some of them who are doing it. There are reporters there.
Most of the front lines where it's combatants, where there's an active war, in most of the cases, they are actually closing and shutting it down for reporters because it's quite dangerous. Now, if you look on the Gaza Strip, it is between 6 and 12 kilometers width. It's tiny.
You're saying it's entirely a war zone, all of it?
Well, almost all of it. And I have to say, Hamas is not a military in uniforms that you can actually identify. They are using civilian clothes, in many cases, pressed vests. We have images of them shooting.
Again, I don't doubt it, and I'm not talking about those journalists. I'm talking about legitimate international journalists and it's their choice. Forgive me, it's their choice to take the risk with their lives. It's always been that way in war, even in heated war zones. It's their choice to take that risk.
I understand, Sheila, but the way the international community treats Israel is very different to many other conflicts. And if anything, God forbid, would happen to one of these reporters, you know who's going to be blamed for, and you understand what an immense pressure is going to be on Israel.
So it's about protecting journalists, your decision to not let them in.
Well, what do you think?
That won't wash. I'm afraid it won't wash.
Hold on. First of all, we are protecting and defending in many cases, not just journalists, but even United Nations forces. Let me remind you that whoever rescued the United Nations force in Syria during the conflict was Israeli forces. So yes, we are protecting many different forces around. But I want to ask you another question. What would happen if Hamas tomorrow abduct and held hostage some of these
I'm aware,
journalists?
and they have historically, as have Hezbollah. I know they have, and again, that is the choice of the journalists.
Hold on.
It's the choice of the journalists to take that risk.
Foreigners from Africa, from the Philippines, from Thailand. Who do you think paid the price for their release, like any other
Israeli soldiers?
How many? And how many terrorists, murderers that committed some of the worst crimes against children and women that we had to release from prison that are now walking in our streets?
I'm aware.
How many of them did we needed to release for every single one?
I'm aware, but are you aware? I am aware of all of those horrors. Are you aware that the longer this war is, to a large degree, behind closed doors, the less trust people have often in what Israeli officials such as yourself say? You happen to be speaking to somebody who absolutely gives Israel a fair crack of the whip in conversations. I think what's happened to you on October the 7th is an abomination. I think the level of the style of urban warfare that Hamas has concocted in Gaza has made the job impossibly difficult for the IDF. I would regard myself as a friend of Israel, and yet I see Israel doing multiple things. The Israeli government, this current Israeli government, doing multiple things that I think make things worse for Israel and its reputation. And reputation might seem like a thing that's low down the list at the moment, given the state we saw those hostages in, given the situation in Gaza. But it matters. It matters because of what Israel is supposed to be.
So, Sheila, I have to say something, very honestly. Okay, regardless the immense risk that in the liability that is going to lie on Israel in an active front, an active war zone that we have, I'm not sure those reporters will actually do that. I mean, since the beginning of the war, even when reporters were allowed, they were still reporting straight from the mouthpiece of Hamas. Almost every piece that they've reported since then was reported from Hamas without checking, without verifying the facts. The fact that it was published that this boy on the front page in Italy, one of the only images they could find of an image of a Palestinian boy was put on the front page of an Italian newspaper.
I'm aware, and he has a condition, and Israel sent him to Italy to get help.
Since June, it's been treated, Osama has been treated in Italy for cystic fibrosis. And those are the only images they are able to find. This is one of the most documented, videoed war, I think, there were. You see images coming all the time from there.
But that's not the same as journalism, as you well know.
Knowingly are lying to the public.
I know some are, but many aren't. And I'm certainly not.
And unfortunately, I'm sorry, but if you tell me that then the reporting from the mouth of Hamas will stop, or somehow they'll want to balance it, I'm sorry, I don't buy it, because I've seen how they've reported it for the last 2 years, even when they were allowed in.
So is the truth that you're not keeping journalists out to keep them safe? You're keeping them out because you don't trust them to tell the story properly?
When you told me, that you regards, and care for Israel and the way that you report, I gave you the answer. The answer is that we cannot take that liability, not now, and not and even while we know now that we're going to intensify our military operation there. This is the reason. But when you tell me that this is the reason why, and by you as someone who does regard and does care for Israel, but that will somehow convince someone else to report neutrally, like the BBC or other journalists who have completely twisted the facts, I'm sorry, but I dispute that. I disagree with that.
So can I just try and summarize what we've learned from each other and about what's next? Israel is going to go further in, deeper in Gaza. Can we take that as read in light of those images of the two hostages, Evyatar and Rom?
So right now, the defense minister have passed his plan and his view or vision of what the military operation should look like right now. The prime minister will need to review it in the next couple of days, and then the cabinet will need to approve it. So the process and the prospect of that happening is quite likely right now.
Are we likely to see what Israel Katz, you mentioned him earlier, called a humanitarian city in Gaza, a tent city controlled? Once you're in, you can't come out. So presumably the idea behind that is to go and get remnants of Hamas when people would be in that tent city. But what about that move? I mean, that is a contentious move, to say the least.
Look, unfortunately, Israel is constantly being treated differently.
I'm not treating you differently. I'm simply asking you, is that the plan?
I know. But, I've heard, in all the other conflicts that you would see, every single one of them, at least women and children will find refuge in neighboring country or foreign countries that will accept them during the times of war. None of them accepted Palestinians. None of them. And so, on the one hand, the international community comes now and blame Israel by their actions of not letting them in or not giving them refuge. And then when Israel is trying to find a way in keeping at least women and children and civilians safe, then it's been criticized as well. So, I think you need to pick which one is.
But if they can't leave that, imagine, let's say it happens, if they can't leave that tent city at all, and they have no other option, that they're being held, aren't they?
Plan to build a refuge area, zone, or city, whatever you would want to call it, is in the planning now, and we need to understand.
It is in the planning.
And we need to really truly understand how it's going to look and what's going to happen there. Okay, trying to make assumption whether they will be able to leave or not be able to leave before seeing every single section of how it's going to look like and how it's going to operate. I can't comment on that because I even don't know whether that's a fact or not. But I know that when the international community, and especially the United Nations organization, have refused to accept civilians and keep them away from the front line, we need to find somehow a way to actually do that safely while we combat a terrorist organization that's been using.
If you'll allow me, this has parallels. What I'm hearing is feels or echoes of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation response to the way the UN was distributing food. That has not been a rip-roaring success, to say the least. It's certainly been, very deadly to hundreds of people. You don't want a repeat of that. Something that is supposed to be about sidestepping terrorism, actually creating something even worse.
Sheila, the situation is very difficult and very chaotic. I have to say that with the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, because they've been distributing successfully millions of meals free of charge directly to the population, that's been taking a lot of the civilian power from Hamas, and Hamas has been panicking over it. So when Hamas try to fight this organization, whether through declaring that anyone that comes and collect food will be declared a traitor, and traitors in Gaza are executed, or whether they declare that anyone that murder a humanitarian worker will receive a prize money, will have a bounty on their heads, that can actually create chaos. Matter of fact, Hamas attacked a bus of humanitarian workers, killing 5 of them. It injured 2 American aid workers as well. Will there be, some disruption and chaos? Probably. It's being very difficult to fight the terrorist organization who was given the distribution authority to the humanitarian aid, and through that is controlling the civilian population. But I have to say, they've been doing a better work than what was done until now. Do you think it wasn't chaotic at the United Nations distribution centers? Just on Saturday, there was a tragic event distributed by the United Nations as well. It's very difficult. These things can happen. But I think that if we would have the cooperation of both the Americans and the United Nations with the proper organization, with the experts who've dealt with that in the past, I think it would have looked very different.
I must leave it there, but thank you very much for giving us so much of your time. Sharren Haskel, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Israel.